Okay, cool. So I hope everyone has read through it. What it basically means is, I mean, the content which we'll be presenting is based on, some of the content is based on experience, but if you need more details related to the product and the features and anything else, you would be reaching out to the correct persons or the correct um, uh, correct people or the correct teams. Okay. Okay. So before we start with Meetup, so quick mic check. So if you have slow network, and if you're not able to hear us, or you're not able to see us, or your screen has frozen and you don't see the deck, just do a refresh on the screen. Same goes for us. So if any one of us is having some video or audio issues, please do not worry. We will just be joining back in a minute. Okay. So we will be having some topics, and during those topics, you're free to ask any questions. You should be able to see, if you open your chat section on the right hand side, you should be able to see a Q&A section. You should be able to see a general section and a DM section. So if you have any Q&A questions, so we'll be starting the private the Q&A questions as soon as the topic starts, and you can post your questions there. Or if you have any general questions, you can post in the general channel. Okay. And if you have any questions specific to someone like me or Ganesh or Igor or Alex, just add the rate, and you should be able to ask the question specific to someone. So we will. So this is a event where we'll be having presenters who will be the host, and we'll be having the content presenters. At the end, during the end of the meetup, when we have the quiz and the wrap up and the networking event, we will be turning on the cameras and making everyone a presenter, so that everyone is free to talk and spend some time networking. Okay. So like we said, if there is any problem with video or audio issues, there is a link which is available in the chat in the general, which me and Ganesh have posted. Please just follow that link or just refresh this page and join the event again. Okay. Last but not the least, so we will be recording this meetup as every other past meetups. So the content will be available. The recording of the whole event will be available in our event page right after the event has been event ends. Okay, cool. So what's the agenda? So we'll start off with a round of introductions. Then we have we have two of our most exciting topics. So the first topic is from Alex. Alex, hi. So it's regarding MuleSoft's journey, or MuleSoft's role in energy and utilities industry, where he'll be sharing some experiences. Then we have event-driven architecture and patterns, which will be shared by Igor. Hi, Igor. And followed by, we will have some Q&A sessions, which will be related to the topics and Q&A in general. Okay. Post that, we will be having an interactive quiz, and the interactive quiz will have some questions, and we'll talk about that later. And people who the top 3 winners of the quiz will win some trivia vouchers from MuleSoft. And finally, we'll have some picture time and some networking before we wrap up this event. So the networking time will be substantial amount of time. So people who want to speak up will provide them the opportunity. Okay, so introductions. So who am I? So my name is Chinmay Sahu. I'm actually from India, but currently I'm residing in Munich, Germany. I'm a solution architect with MuleSoft Professional Services in Germany. And I'm going to be your host for the event, and I'm the meetup leader in Munich. I will let Ganesh and Shakti introduce themselves.
Hello everyone. So basically I'm also from India and living in Munich, Germany. And I have been working with MuleSoft technology for the past 5 years. And I have been working with UTA.
Thanks, Ganesh. Hi, Shakti. I think you're on mute.
Oh, thank you. So hi all, Shakti here. So I'm working with MuleSoft for almost like 5 to 6 years now, and I'm working for Cognizant Technologies. And I'm like, yeah, basically I'm also from India and working in Germany currently. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Shakti and Ganesh. So I will let the speakers introduce themselves during their own topics, but yeah, saying hi to Alex and
Sure.
Igor again. Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's start off with the topics. So I would first hand it over to Alex. I would stop sharing my screen. So Alex, you're free to share your screen, and then we can start off with your introduction and then the topic. Welcome everyone again, and I'll just mute myself until and unless required. Okay.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Just waiting that the button for screen sharing is active. Pleasure to be here. I will talk a little bit today how MuleSoft helps us in the energy and utilities industry. Unfortunately, I can't share my screen.
So Alex, could you just refresh the page again? So you'll
Okay.
be logged out and logged in. So let's wait for a couple of minutes for Alex. Yeah, if someone has a similar kind of issues, you just need to rejoin and everything should be
Oh,
okay.
firing up again.
Cool.
Now,
Awesome. We can share your screen.
just so can you hear me?
Yes, we can. But your screen share.
So now you should see my screen.
Not yet, Alex.
I'm just starting presentation mode. So great. Hands up if you can hear me.
We can hear you, but we can't see your
I
share
can't
screen.
hear you.
I don't know if it is just me, Ganesh
Yeah,
and
that's
Nico.
same. Yeah, that's same. That's same.
I think you need to refresh the page again. I'm able to see it. I just refreshed it again.
Okay, cool. I can see now. Okay. So if someone is facing an issue with the screen, please do press a refresh and all should be good.
So once again, so hopefully got now my. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Alex.
Yeah, Alex. Yeah.
I also can hear now. And sharing my screen. So can you see the presentation?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Now we're finally set to go. Hello everyone again. My name is Alexander Riedel. I'm enterprise architect and head of architecture solutions at AW. I'm now 25 years in the IT industry. I went through several industries like telecommunication, logistics, was a freelancer. And in all these industries, I went through several digital transformations. And I will guide you today through this agenda. I shortly introduce CKW. I show you what I do on enterprise level, and then I show you also what I do on application development and microservice level. So CKW is an energy and utilities company located in Switzerland in the beautiful Luzern. It's like, let's say, an end-to-end energy company. So we also produce with solar, wind, hydro, you name it, everything. We are maintaining the grid. We're building the solar panels. We do all the management allocation. We provide a lot of service. There's a lot going on in the smart energy sector, and also the distribution then to the customers. Example for the smart energy solutions is you have a solar panel on the rooftop, and you can share your currency between the different apartments. You can produce it, provide it back to the grid, and for this you need software, and you have to retrieve a lot of data. And this is where MuleSoft comes in and helps us to get our stuff running. So I just start on the enterprise level. as you can imagine, also we are going through a lot of digital transformation programs. You have the usual zoo of applications, products, everything point to point. And so in the digital transformation roadmap, we have 4 core systems. That's our SAP, our ServiceNow, our CRM platform, and our BI platform. And all those applications are connected through the integration layer to our core systems and the core systems between each other. And so it's the typical enterprise challenge to bring the big ball of mud under control with all the governance and the insights. So what you do on enterprise level, if you have such a landscape, you sort it in domains. So for the smart energy business platform, we are building the 2 domains where you can, in one is the e-mobility and one is more the solar stuff. And what we also see, all these projects, the first 3 to 6 months, they're doing all the same. They're retrieving the metering data, and they're also building every time the same components. So it's always monitoring the visualization of the metering data. So, and the best example is a customer single sign-on. And so we're building reusable components for all these applications. And together with the MuleSoft integration layer, we're building a business bus, energy business platform to reuse not only the APIs, also the needed components for these softwares. And that's where we're on, and that's encourages or that drives our business case much further. In the domain data, we have a lot of data to retrieve. You have the metering data on which, for example, your private bill at home is calculated, and all those applications need the metering data, and there are several meters where you have to retrieve the data. And also there are a lot of controllers to control your heat pump. And there's really on the market a lot of controllers and meters, and so you have to retrieve like from 20 controllers or 20 meters all the data. So, and now this is very energy specific. The data exchange in the energy industry is based on a 50-year-old technology that is FTP. And it's not only FTP, it's a special FTP, it's FTPS, not SFTP, and there's implicit and explicit mode, and this is quite tricky. It's always, new vendors are always struggling in the first weeks to make the connection to this FTPS. You cannot underestimate this challenge. So that's for the meters, and for the controllers, they are mostly in the building. You have all these controllers for water, and they communicate each others with Modbus, MBus, and then an export or communication to another system can be provided through MQTT. This goes a little bit in all the IoT frameworks. And for the FTPs, the FTPS, you just receive XML files, which are huge and complex, or just plain CSV files where all the metadata is in it. And it's quite a challenge, and every project has to retrieve this data. So what we are doing with MuleSoft, we hook up, there's a special MuleSoft FTPS connector also available, and we're currently licensing that, and then we can hook up the MuleSoft integration platform directly to this FTPS connections, and retrieve the data and put it into our main databases or several databases, and then through the experience layer give the several applications and REST API. And this FTPS, we have to use it. It's really in the Swiss regulatory written down if you want to retrieve the data from the source, from this huge metering data systems. They all have like Oracle systems. You have to use it. So you need to use this by regulatory. Yeah, and this is the handling of a lot of data in the energy and utilities industry. So you are probably all familiar with the MuleSoft approach, with the system APIs, process APIs, and experience APIs. Now down there is again the core systems with ServiceNow, the BI, SAP. We use Microsoft Dynamics CRM, and for example, there's an Oracle database where the metering data is in, and on the right side are the very specific energy and utility systems like network information system, or comes to with a metering provider, and Robotron is huge systems comparable like in with Oracle database, like comparable like SAP only for metering data, and there's a lot in there. So it's a huge chain in the meter to cash process, which must be like that because it must be stable and reliable. And if we hook up then our metering data, then we can provide several of these applications the metering data directly from a database and not from 20 FTPs, and can distribute this metering data. What we did, we are now 1 year live with our first API. Maybe a short reference also to our one-time setup. That was the first huge topic we did. So we also have cloud first, of course, but we will live in a hybrid setup for the next years, or there will always be some stuff on premise. We also have data center, and there are the huge systems, there are the data. So the one-time setup was crucial, and with MuleSoft it really runs excellent. We have our one-time in the on-premise data center. We have a one-time in our CKW Asia environment, and of course there's the MuleSoft Cloud Hub. So independently, if I have a SaaS solution outside my data in the data center, or some microservices in my CKW Asia, I can all hook up them together and provide everyone the data they need or the API they need, independently if it's cloud or on premise, and it's really a huge advantage. That was it for the basic enterprise setup. So I now give some examples for all this, not all, for some of the core systems. For example, the head of BI approached us together with his data architect. He want to bet on data mesh. So also MuleSoft provides a lot of information and approaches on data mesh. You also do with the data a transformation to domain orientated data. So there's not this huge big data Hadoop system where you want to put everything in it, so you decentralize it and you have multiple models. You don't force it into one model, and so you land in a domain orientated distribution of the data. And also the goal is to enable data self-service. So we have the single protocols, and again, you need not a dedicated data analyst, so more a domain-oriented generalist. And also MuleSoft has an approach for this. So, and now if you think in your 3 layers, now surprise, there is another layer. Yeah, it's the data mesh layer, where your data as a product is basically available, and there you can your orders or your customers provide a data product, and then again integrate for the process APIs and the experience APIs to your front ends. MuleSoft is providing a lot of information of that. This another one, you also go then to a unified schema, And up there is Power BI, Grafana, Tableau, and ClickView, and Surprise in CKW, and also in our mother company. We have all of this. We have all of these four, and with Data Mesh, we get it under control and can deliver data to our customers. That was a short exchange about BI and Data Mesh. Of course, we have SAP. We also have SAP S/4HANA migration project. Also, MuleSoft can help you there a lot with the migration, with the bulk transfer process, or with the you have your example of a migration flow. Also, is there the anypoint message queue in it? It's also in our backlog. We are currently looking at it, and we will set on this anypoint message queue in some time. And this is a typical approach also provided by MuleSoft, how you can do this migration. And with the API-led approach for SAP migration, formerly there was this big bang migration scenarios. I was also in that. You had like one opportunity a year when there's a day off, a free day, a national holiday on Friday or Monday. So you have 3 days for this huge SAP migration. I would say this is already old school. So, and what you do and what we all do, we do a transformation and migration on the fly. So you go by all the entities like the customers, you switch to HANA, you switch to products to HANA, and you have a mix between the two systems. And then finally, you have migrated everything on HANA. And if you build it up, your APIs above are clean, then this is the way to go. What I'm also asked a lot as enterprise architect is how does this all work together with the SAP world, with the SAP connections. Honestly, my integration layer consists of MuleSoft and the SAP SCPI, because SAP to SAP connection you always do through the SCPI, but MuleSoft also provides you like SuccessFactors connector. So if the use case is there, you also hook up MuleSoft directly to the SaaS solutions, but the communication between SAP, you always keep in the SCP. This was a short excursus about SAP. Now, we go now away from my role as an enterprise architect and go a little bit more. I'm running also a development team, and actually the next use case was developed by the BI team. We do also application development and building microservices. So we had a use case. A customer wants to receive an offer based on his metering profile. So you upload your metering data and you get a price. Sounds easy. The acceptance criteria, it may take a maximum of 10 seconds, not milliseconds, seconds, and from end to end, from the request to the response, and then the offer is displayed on a portal like our MyCKW. The use case sounds easy. If you look now at this is our architecture for this, and I want to draw your attention on MATLAB. Sorry. No. Back. I just clicked too far. And in MATLAB, the price is calculated. And if you're familiar with MATLAB, MATLAB does its job. It's very complex. All these formulas are in there. So they calculated this all with MATLAB and tried it with MATLAB. And this was the initial idea or our as-is architecture to solve this problem. Now, if we use MATLAB, it takes 4 minutes to get the price. Now we do a little experiment. You go now to a website, upload your data, and you click the button and want to retrieve your offer. And now we wait 4 minutes. Okay, I can't anymore. That's too long. We are all on the same page. 4 minutes, that's not acceptable. And I guess the customer is like, okay, the customer is away. So our external partner proposed me another solution. You also can put Java code into MuleSoft. So the idea was to put business logic into the integration layer. Your instinct as enterprise architect says no. There will be no business logic in the integration layer. That's normal. And but in this case, I was convinced. Okay, we go this approach, and really our external partner, our CKW BI team succeeded. They reprogrammed all these very complex MATLAB formulas with Java into MuleSoft. And now we have like an application or a service, a microservice, however you want to call it, in the process API layer. And now it takes 4 seconds, what you seen have before. Still not in my world. We're talking about normally about milliseconds, but 4 seconds is acceptable, and there's of course room for improvement. And now you retrieve all the data, or someone uploads the data. The calculation happens in MuleSoft and is delivered to the front end. We have several front ends, several portals, several use cases: the sales portal, your private my CKW portal, and for this we have a huge reuse factor also. And this is a classic case where we really succeeded to reprogram something in Java. So be aware, not in every case you should put in business logic there, but you can solve a problem with MuleSoft also in this area. Yeah, then I'm coming to the big target picture. If you now combine all these core systems, digital transformation, data mesh, microservices, I will land in a picture like this. So again, I have my core systems, my huge databases, my new databases, Kafka, ClickHouse, PostgreSQL, timescale module, you name it. Retrieving the data, retrieving the customers, building the data mesh layer in between, providing a customer data product, transforming it in the process API layer. And now you also have a microservice layer where I already put in the pricing engine. And what we also now have learned also today in the call today at the DACH event, you also can make your Azure microservices available in MuleSoft. So you have one marketplace for the APIs and the microservices, and this is a huge advantage. You then really can provide the customer or your business cases everything they need. And up there, you again on the experience API level, you see the domains, the different portals, and also again ServiceNow. It's one time on the system API layer, but ServiceNow is also a front end because it is customer facing native apps and web apps, and this is why ServiceNow, for example, is on both sides. And yes, this is the goal. We're working on several streams as enterprise architecture. I follow the classic Center for Enablement. I hook up all these core systems, provide one API, do all the organization and operations, and then I enable the different teams to do their project, like the BI team with the data mesh or the pricing engine, and so all comes together under one umbrella. And MuleSoft is really cool in the energy and in utilities industry. yeah, this would be a short presentation about what CKW is doing with MuleSoft. You also can find me on LinkedIn. And of course, we have a lot of open positions currently searching for integration architects. So if you want to work in the beautiful Luzern, give me a apply for the job. And was really a pleasure to present this, what we are doing here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alex. I think it was really good insights when we look at how much MuleSoft is playing a role in your organization, shaping the transformation in the utilities industry, energy and utilities industry. Yeah, so it's really, really nice to see the progress, Alex. Thank you so much for your insight. So we have some questions. So there was a question from Marcus that how did you develop the Java code, which was then later incorporated into MuleSoft? So did you use any specific tooling or connector or data weave?
No specific tooling. Actually, our integration partner also already experienced to program this in Java, and it took a little bit time in the summer because of this. Just to understand these MATLAB formulas and to get really the same price, and it's really on the comma the correct price comes out.
Okay, cool. I might have a question for you. So I would like to understand a bit more on the data mesh layer. So what was the role of the data mesh layer that we created, and how it, from a business point of view, how is it improving or increasing your reusability?
Well, I would say data mesh is now the wording or the framework we all thought about for years, and now since 1 year there's this buzzword data mesh, and actually it's what's in one mind to not centralize all this data, and many I would didn't maybe succeeded, but it was a huge effort, and with this data mesh approach we really can be faster and leave the source data where it is, and we just do the manipulation and providing the data to our business. And we have several business cases and where we need these data products. And this decentralization also, you can't build such a huge BI team to get this all under control, where all the data is and in what schema it is, and so the data mesh layer is now developing, and yeah, we're looking forward. MuleSoft helps us a lot with this, and yeah, looking forward to implement this.
Awesome, cool. So yeah, people in the forum, please feel free to ask your questions. So you can drop in your questions in the Q&A section in the chat, or maybe in the general channel. So we would
So
still have like 5 more minutes.
we also have a question from Marius. How many vehicles
Okay.
do we use for this architecture?
We just kicked off with 2 production cores, and not everything is running at the same time. So you must know, in the energy and utilities industry, they are far away from real time. It's also written in the regulatory that you only can use data from the day before. That is really written down, and now you have to understand how you retrieve the metering data. There's an RC mesh, and it takes a little bit time to even connect to the meter, and there's a huge process, and it can take several days to get the meter, and there are processes at the end of the month all the data is here, and so not every API is for this data, for this metering data, it's running once a day. So but we will for sure, if all this is hooked up and SAP HANA comes in place. So for SAP, you calculate, yeah, you need about 1 production core. So in some near future, we will for sure increase, but my recommendation is start with 2 cores, and then you see the usage, and with MuleSoft you can upgrade anytime. That's a really easy process.
Awesome. I think we got the answer. So do you run? So there is one more question from Peter. Hi, Peter. So the question is, do you run everything on Cloud Hub or on-prem? I think it's a mix of both, isn't it?
It's a mix. It's definitely a mix. That's why I showed the one-time setup. So some stuff we have in Cloud Hub, some stuff on-premise, and some stuff in the CKW Azure one-time.
Okay, awesome. Any more questions? Anyone? We can still have one more question before we jump off to the next topic. Okay, cool. So thanks again, Alex. Thank you so much for your insights. Thank you so much for showing us how MuleSoft basically thrives or improves your or helps you shape your digital transformation. And really, really good insights from you. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. It was a
Okay.
pleasure.
Okay, so we'll still have the Q&A open if anyone still has any questions for Alex. Okay, but now I'll pass this to Igor to talk about event-driven architecture. So
thanks, Chinmay. Hello, everyone. I do apologize. I will just need to refresh the page so I can share my screen. So just bear with me for a few seconds.
Sure, Igor.
So until then, like we can check on the question and answers.
Yeah. So
I more questions.
Yeah. So Igor, are you able to see the share screen window?
Awesome. Yes.
So again, for new attendees, if anyone is facing any problem for not being able to see the presentation, please just refresh your screen. And I'm going to do the same for a minute. Okay, I can see your screen, Igor.
Lovely. So you should be seeing the presentation. Please let me know otherwise. All right, great. So let's kick it off then. So let me introduce myself first. My name is Igor Repka, and I'm Senior Solutions Architect from MuleSoft EMEA Professional Services team. I'm based in London. I'm currently sitting in my apartment while presenting to you guys. So lovely 21st century. And today, as already mentioned, I will be talking about event-driven architecture. So let's have a look at our agenda. As you can see, it's really basic, simple agenda, just three bullet points here. We'll cover basics of event-driven architecture, patterns, and anti-patterns. Before we dive in, I would like to set up a stage and maybe expectations. So because this is a MuleSoft meetup, we're looking at event-driven architecture from the obviously MuleSoft perspective, and we'll be putting it into a context of API-led connectivity as well. Everything we are just about to see is basically driven or is based on the experience we have from working with our clients and partners as well. And basically, this presentation should help us to address some very common use cases, very common challenges, and help us to align on how we understand event-driven architecture, because probably there are different people with different point of views, which is obviously completely fine. And that's also how or why I would like to use the first section of the presentation to kind of discuss how I understand event-driven architecture and just align on some terminology before we dive into any sort of details. Good. So let's discuss the basics. Right. Let's start with the first section. And surprisingly, you can see three terms here. You can see event, command, and message, right? So let's start discussing how they are same or how they are different, because people many times use some of them interchangeably, right? Or some of them are sometimes misunderstood in the context of event-driven architecture. So let's use a couple of diagrams, couple of scenarios where we can explain the differences or similarities in these terms. So the first example, it's actually a very typical use case. I believe many of you experienced already. So we have a mobile application, and we use the mobile application to update a customer address, right? Because this operation is not operation which we would need to get any data back for. It can be implemented in asynchronous way, and that's very often really beneficial for mobile applications because you want to save some battery life really, and you want to have a quick response time due to semi-stable internet connectivity. So imagine that you are calling API, you're updating your address from the mobile application. What Experience API does, it just basically publishes this information with your new address to queue topic, or let's call it channel, generally speaking. And what happens next is that process layer, process API, as a subscriber, listens to the queue, picks up your address update, and then via the system layer updates different systems, in this case Salesforce and data repository with your new address. So that's scenario number one. Very simple, actually, very common one. Scenario number two is slightly different. So imagine we have some third-party application. That doesn't really matter what that application is or what it does, but the scenario is the same. What happened is that in this third-party application, there was a customer address updated, right? And this application now letting us know about this update via Experience layer, via Experience API. And Experience API, again, pushes this information or publishes this information via a channel. And there are various subscribers. In this instance, we have two subscribers, Salesforce, and again, some data repository. They listen to the queue, to the information arriving there, and act accordingly, which means in this case, they would be updating the address of a specific customer, right? And obviously, great thing is that you can have as many subscribers potentially as you need to, and it's easy to add more. So now coming back to the terminology, where is the event, where is the command, and where is the message, right? So the first scenario, we are dealing with a command because we are instructing the systems via the mobile app to do something. So we are saying update customer's address, right? So that's a command. In the second scenario, we are talking about the event because the customer has been updated in a system, and the system, the third-party system in this case, is just letting us know that, look, there was an update for this specific customer, and maybe this update includes a new address. So this is a key difference between a command and event. So now the last word which we need to put into a context is a message. So where is a message in this diagram? So in both scenarios, we are dealing with a messages, right? So in the first instance, or in a first diagram, we have a message that has a type of command. In a second instance, we have a message with type of event. So they're both messages, they're just different type of messages. That's why sometimes you hear people saying message-driven and event-driven, and they use it interchangeably. It's not entirely wrong because event-driven is just like a subcategory of message-driven, but message-driven is much wider pattern or captures or includes much more use cases than event-driven. So this is a key terminology which is obviously very important to understand, so you know if you are actually dealing with event-driven architecture in the first place, or just some sort of command that is implemented in a synchronous way. So we discussed event command and message, but what event-driven means. And so I'm going to be referring Martin Fowler here. He had a very same discussion with different colleagues during the conference, and they come up with the most common event-driven patterns, right? So when people say event-driven, they usually mean one of these 4 things or patterns. So the first one is event notification. I believe you all experienced event notification, at least from the user perspective, right? So your mobile phones give you some notifications like, oh, look at this application. There is a new data for you, or you have a new message in your mailbox, stuff like that. So these are event notifications. And then you have event carried state transfer. So it's a similar, could be similar to notification. However, in this case, we are also getting the information about the state. So we are getting the information about what actually changed. So if I go back to my previous example, for example, update of a customer's address, we would be getting the new address details as part of that event, right? So that state is actually carried with the event. Then there is event sourcing, right? So this is a scenario or use case where all your events are written in a log. And the benefit here is that the log can be replied at any moment. So basically, you can kind of like go through the history and repeat what happened over the certain period of time, right? So it's a quite powerful pattern. Then the last one is command query responsibility segregation, or CQRS. So for this one, imagine the scenario where you have a really tough performance requirements when it comes to read and write operations on your database. So you need to read really quickly, and you also need to write really quickly. For those of you who are familiar with databases, you probably know that you can't tune database usually to achieve the best performance for both, for read and write, because they actually go against each other, right? So some configuration requirements or some configuration you need to do on top of the database can enable fast read, but then would impact write operations in a negative way. So what you need to do is separate or segregate the database. So we have one database instance for write operations and another one for read operations. And then obviously, if you write something to a write instance, it should be then replicated in a read instance. And that's where command query responsibility segregation comes into picture. So imagine you write something new and the notification is triggered. It arrives to a read replica, and it knows that it should pick up a new data from the write. So it's like it's implemented actually by using event notification in these examples, so like combination. So now let's have a look at requirements driving a need for EDA, right? So okay, there is EDA, apart from the fact that it's really cool architecture and it comes with really cool patterns and capabilities. Why we would want to use it, or why we would need to use it, actually, maybe is a better way of saying it. So as usually, there are two elements. There are functional and non-functional requirements that can drive a need for EDA. When it comes to functional requirements, it's very often just business data replication or synchronizations. You have 2, 3, 100 systems that are interested in the data updates happening in any of the other systems, right? So that's where this comes handy. This is what the requirement is about. Decoupling business processes, right? To achieve better flexibility, we all love agile environments, and businesses as well. They want to be very fast when it comes to delivering new products to the market. And that's where decoupling business processes can become handy, because obviously you can update certain sub-processes or steps without impacting the rest of the process. It's very powerful. More modern use cases like feeding AI, feeding analytics, right? So you need to make decisions really quickly against the latest data. You have some artificial intelligence and machine learning running underneath or somewhere behind the scene. It's an extremely powerful pattern, right? We see these use cases more and more often these days in insurance, fintech, but even any other sector really. And also Internet of Things, which is actually something Alex has been talking about a bit as well. When it comes to non-functional requirements, very standard challenges, right? So high throughput, near real-time communication, costs and resources utilization, scalability, reliability, resilience. That's if any of these or more than one of these are very critical for your use cases, then EDA may be the architecture you would like to consider. So let's move to the next section, which is about the patterns. So once again, this is all driven by our experience, which we have with our clients. So I have chosen the most common patterns we see being implemented. And these patterns are actually real live example, right? So this is not made up. These things have been implemented somewhere. I just obviously purified so there are no client information on the following slides. So let's have a look at the first example. It's a business data replication synchronization. This specific example is from healthcare industry, but obviously really any industry you can imagine could leverage the same or similar approach and patterns. So why or how the EDA was implemented? So basically, it's a synchronization of the domain objects. We have a broker agents, patients, providers, appointments, any other entities you can possibly imagine. And you have a different systems. In this case, we're talking about Salesforce and some master repository. And you want to make sure that if any update in any of these domain objects happen in any of these systems, the update is then replicated across all the systems that maintain the same information, the same data. In this scenario, we are using or applying event carried state transfer, right? So one of the four patterns which we discussed. Now, what was the motivation to use EDA for this client, right? So the first one, and this is again quite a common one, they wanted to avoid too many pull requests, right? So that's where you call the server every second, 5 seconds, or 10 seconds to ask server, is the information there, right? Is the information there? Is the information there? Right. So obviously that's not the best way how to utilize your recourse because the very high percentage of these requests are just waste. When it comes to mobile apps, coming back to mobile app, you can't even implement such a thing because you would just drain your battery and the users wouldn't be really thankful for that, as you can imagine. So that's a pattern to be avoided in this instance and replaced by event-driven architecture. The next motivation here or requirement was decoupling, right? So again, having the separation of concerns. So the producer of the event doesn't really need to understand who consumers are, what they do, why they're interested in the event, how many of them are there, right? Neither of these things should be impacting the producer and vice versa. So let's have a look at a very high-level diagram that captures how the event carried state transfer was leveraged in this example. So we have a Salesforce as an event emitter or as a source of the event. That's where change happened. Then on the MuleSoft side of things, we have some integration logic, right, which is routing and event enricher. And then eventually we publish the event to relevant channel. Right? So patients, it could be patients channel for broker agent. It's going to be master data repository for providers. It could be providers channel, right? So there is a routing, and the specific event type goes to a specific channel, and the event type in this instance is defined by the domain object, right? Because this is a domain object synchronization use case. So this is obviously just very high level, maybe even conceptual view on how things work. But because I promised you API-led connectivity views as well, let's have a look at that. So let's see how that translates to API-led world. So this is the EDA implemented via API-led, right? So starting on the top, there is a Salesforce system, and it produces event, and the event is captured by the experience layer. It's also enriched by the experience layer by calling system API sitting on top of the Salesforce, right? Once the message is enriched, right, we have now event that carries the state, right? So it starts as it's actually a bit of a combination, right? It starts as a notification, but we call Salesforce via system layer to get more information about that event, right? So we get a state, and then we carry state through the rest of the solution, because that's then published to another channel, right? That's where my decoupling basically starts. So the Salesforce part is handled. Now it's sitting in a channel and it's waiting to be processed by my business logic. And that's where process layer comes into a picture. So process layer, obviously, process API subscribes to a channel and does two things, right? So it updates the data in the master data repository via system API, and it also updates the Salesforce about the status, right? So it says it is successful or it failed. If it failed, it goes through that letter channel. So that's obviously exception handling or error handling, and that complexity is not captured on the diagram for the simplicity purposes. And now what we have here is also a sequence diagram. So obviously I don't want to talk about this too much because I just described what the sequence diagram captures anyway, and it's difficult to read for you guys, I guess. But the point I'm trying to make here is the importance of the sequence diagrams, right? So if you just quickly look at it, just for really illustration purposes. But from the sequence diagram, I can understand the behavior I just described. If I would just show you the API-led view at the very beginning and ask you to take me through the process, through the behavior of this solution, I bet you would actually struggle to kind of come with some sort of a message flow or event flow here. So it's very important that in this type of scenarios and use cases, you have your you have your sequence diagrams in hand, and ideally they should be published on Exchange together with your API specifications, so people can easily understand the bigger picture of what is actually implemented. Now let's have a look at another example. In this case, the business need is really to decouple different business processes. So this is from a retail industry, but again, just this specific example for us, you can apply the same in really any other industry. I can't imagine industry where this wouldn't be applicable. So maybe surprisingly, unexpected use case or order management in the retail, right? So what we're discussing here is the shipment process that needs to take place after the order is created. Right? The shipment obviously must go to our partner responsible for logistics, and there is one extra step in the process where we need to provide a shipment label so the delivery person can actually deliver the package to the consumer. The EDA pattern used here is event notification, and so it's really probably the simplest one, I would say. So now, why EDA? Why this client opted, or why the EDA was proposed and implemented as a solution? So again, decoupling producer of the event from the consumer of the event. But if you think about it, it's kind of aligned with the business need itself. Obviously, with decouple processes, usually it means you decouple producers and consumers as well in one way or another. Scalability, another important requirement. So it's not no point to point, but don't get confused, please. In this context, we say point to point in a sense that I know who I'm calling, or I know who I'm sending message to, right? In this context, point to point, because we know API-led is there to replace point to point, but the point to point means that in this case, that API calling another API knows about that API, right? But with this solution, that knowledge is not there, right? It's just event being published without knowing who actually is my consumer, right? So it's a completely segregated or completely isolated, which obviously means less flexibility, or sorry, not less flexibility, it means more flexibility, but it means less complexity on the producer side, because producer doesn't need to worry about the domain complexity implemented by the consumer. And what it actually means, we can see on the next API diagram. So again, in this case, it's order. So all order is created, and that event is then consumed by the experience layer, and it's immediately published to a channel called order, right? So you see, this is a consumer. Sorry, not consumer. This is a provider of the event being decoupled from the rest of the process and from the consumers, right? So it doesn't really know what's happening underneath. It doesn't need to. It just publishes the event. Then the process layer implements the business process, right? So it subscribes to order channel, listens to new events arriving, and does a couple of things with it, right? So the first thing, what it does, it enriches the event, right? So it gets extra details for that specific order and details required for a shipment, and it creates a shipment in a system of the partner responsible for logistics, which is Fetcher in this case. It gets a response back about successful shipment creation, and it publishes to another channel. So another separation, right? Another decoupling. And there is another process API that, again, listens to the channel, picks up the event, downloads the shipment label, and then pushes it to some server via SFTP. Well, probably delivery person can just then print it from there, and put a label on the package and just go out and deliver. So let's think about the flexibility and power this solution actually comes with, right? So imagine that we are discussing a shipment right now, but order can be more complex process, right? There could be some marketing involved, right? For example, and they may be also interested in orders that are coming in. So if they want to add another step or sub-process into this solution, into this main process or overall process, all what it takes is to create another subscriber, probably on a process layer, implementing the business logic for this specific business domain. So there is no impact on my message or event producer whatsoever. There is no impact on the rest of the process whatsoever, right? There are no implementation changes. The only thing I need to do is subscribe to the channel from different, basically, implementation from different microservices or from a different API, and implement my logic. Probably I can even reuse the system API that sits on top of retech, right? Because I may need the same data for my new subprocessor, for my new step. Or I can create a domain-specific system API sitting on top of a retag as well, right? Depends on my requirements. So I have all the flexibility. I can play with it without actually impacting the existing solution, right? I'm heavily enriching my process without actually touching the process that already exists. How powerful is that? And the similar applies to a shipment label, right? The next channel we have on the picture. Imagine I need to replace fetcher, or I want to add some extra partner to manage logistics, right? Can do this easily. Just introduce new system or new systems, new system APIs. May want to update my business logic in a process API, and it should be all ready to go. If I would like to replace the existing partner, the only changes I would expect to have are changes in my system APIs, right? So probably SFTP system API would change, and probably my shipment system API would, fetcher shipment system API would change. But the rest of the process, again, is untouched. And definitely what is untouched is the producer of the event. It doesn't know about any of these changes happening, right? So this is the decoupling. This is decoupling on both levels, on a business level and business process level, as well as on the technical level. So again, sequence diagram capturing what I just took you through. No need to spend much more time on it. For illustration purposes only, I would like to encourage you to use sequence diagrams. They're extremely powerful, generally speaking, but in event-driven architecture space, even more than maybe in other. So we covered a couple of patterns and use cases. So let's have a look at anti-patterns. Right. So again, this is driven by my experience, what I've seen other clients, partners doing, and probably should be avoided. Well, not probably, it surely should be avoided. So the first one, probably the most important one. This is probably the most important slide of all. So you guys remember nothing from this presentation but this slide. I would consider myself being extremely successful with this presentation, actually. So this is really important, and this is, I see this too often, more often than I would like to, for sure. So it's about system API calling process API. So how does it actually work? In this instance, we have some workday system. Again, it's a source of the events, so it emits the events. There is a channel, queue, or topic, and there is a system API subscribing to the channel, listening to the events, possibly even enriching the events. Right? So once the event is picked up, it calls workday again to get some extra details. And then what it does, it actually calls process layer to instruct it to do further processing. So obviously, for many of you on the call, you probably know that this would be a violation of API-led principles, right? So the reason why API-led exists is to put things in order, put some boundaries and rules in place, and clean up the architecture, right? Which should simplify our governance, should simplify our microservices API landscape, make it easier to support, maintain, monitor, etc., etc., etc. All these great things, right? However, once we start violating these principles, obviously we are again re-entering the spaghetti type of architecture, which you don't want to, right? So many times you even need to have a different security applied on the different layers, right? There are things that process layers shouldn't really be aware of when the system API is being executed, right? So we really don't want to see these patterns. We really don't want to see these things happening. Now, what's another problem or another issue with this is the fact that now you have a business logic spread across different places. So we know that process layer is where business logic lives, where the integration patterns are being implemented, right? That's our process layer. But now we do some of these things that should be in a process layer in a system API, right? We can say, okay, so we don't enrich the message from a system API. The system API would just notify the process API. Process API would do the enrichment. But then think about the complexity again you're introducing. So the process API gets called, and just to call the same API again, just to get some data from the underlying system, and then trigger its processing, right? Completely unnecessary. Could be valid pattern for some of the cases when there is a callback, right? But definitely not in this case. And then think about reusability as well, right? The fact that we are in EDA in asynchronous space doesn't mean that the API cannot be reused in a synchronous world, right? There could be some portal or some other channel with experience API that could leverage the process API, implement it. It could even use the same payload, right? Imagine you would have event, carried state transfer, and then command, and they would use the same payload, right, and the same information. So definitely, we can question how much we could reuse the process API in this instance, but what we definitely cannot reuse is our system API, right? That's completely now very specific use case. You would struggle to drive reusability from this. So what's the better solution? The better solution is moving the workday management to experience layer, and having experience API listening to the events coming from workday, and then have a channel on a process layer where process API can subscribe to the channel and implement the business logic. So with this solution, imagine you as connector as a one flow, HTTP connector as another flow, and then a main flow implementing a business logic that is actually used from both of these main flows, right? Also, the channel itself on the process layer can be reused, right? So you can either add more producers or you can add more consumers, again, to enrich your process, right? So we're, again, coming back to decoupling business processes. So it's really important concept. So never implement a solution where system API calls process API, right? You are losing flexibility. You're violating API-led principles. You're introducing more problems than benefits for sure. So always think twice and make sure that your logic is integration, such business logic is in process layer and not on the system layer. So the next anti-pattern is ordering events or ordering event. And some of you may think now, oh, hang on, but that's a valid pattern, right? That does exist and it has its place. And yes, I do agree. The way how to look at it in this case is that even good patterns, if implemented in a wrong way, could become anti-patterns. So this is the way to think in this case, right? So ordering events. So let's think about it. I can have events that I expect to arrive well, it's actually even more interesting. There are events that arrive, there are asynchronous events, right? It's asynchronous messaging. So they arrive in any order, potentially. And then we want to make sure that they are reordered and processed in a specific order. So it just kind of like, you can sense how this kind of pushes the benefits of asynchronous processing into the corner and introduces more complexity and impacts the scalability because there is some extra, processing which you need to do against the events that are arriving. So what would be the solutions for this type of use case? Because yes, it is a valid use case, right? So solution number one, move your ordering logic on the side of the consumer, right? So there is some staging area, and that's used to kind of make sure that the events are applied or processed in the right order on the consumer side. So just to give you some example, right? So imagine, again, we are updating an address. So I use my mobile phone, I update my address, I realize I made a typo, I update my address again. So the first update actually fails, whatever there is, the system is down, some glitch, right? And it ends up in the dead letter channel. Then the next update of my address arrives, and that's processed successfully. So now in the system, there is my correct address. However, after the dead letter channel, the message goes back for a reprocessing back to the main channel, or you trigger reprocessing directly from that letter channel. It depends really on your implementation, right? And the same message now is going to be reprocessed because we're talking about reliability and resilience. So if that message gets reprocessed, then I'm actually updating my address with incorrect address, with a typo, right? I want to avoid it. So what I can do, I can use a staging area. So what it means, the update, right? So the address with a typo would be first stored into staging area, and now the system would check the timestamp, right? And would say, oh, hang on. So this is the address with the timestamp that is actually older than what I already have in my system. So it looks like I have actually more recent or latest information about the address already. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to drop this message. I'm not going to update my master repository or my master database, right? So this is a potential solution number one. So what it means is I cleaned up my integration space, right? It's back. It's again flexible. It's scalable. It's resilient, right? However, I just moved the complexity to the underlying system or the target system, and we know that with legacy systems, we probably wouldn't be able to do that anyway, right? Because usually we don't have power to change these systems. So what can we do then? Brings me to solution number two. Solution number two assumes that you have a message broker that supports partitioning. So in this instance, you have a different partitions. Partitions basically use key like a product ID to make sure that the same or the event related to the same product based on the product ID would end up in the same partition. And because it's all in the same partition, you can apply like a FIFO principle, right? So you can process them in order, and then in case of a failure, you may decide if you want to keep processing, right? And you have some, again, logic that makes sure that you don't override the data with the data that is dated already, or you just stop processing of the specific partition until the issue is fixed, and then you start reprocessing once the systems are back up, right? So that's as a solution which you can have on the message broker side. However, not all the message brokers really support partitioning. So just be mindful when you deal with this type of use cases and make sure you know what capabilities you have available when designing for these things. And this is really it. This is all what I wanted to share with you guys today. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Thank you so much. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Igor. I have some questions myself, but yeah, I'll let the group first ask their questions. So, okay. So, yeah, there is a question from Hassan. Does Anypoint platform support event-driven async APIs?
Async APIs with the latest release are supported on the specification level. So you can design them and you can publish them to Exchange. That's how they are supported. Event-driven architecture specifically can be obviously implemented with Anypoint and with Anypoint MQ. But again, I wouldn't treat that as a silver bullet. There are different use cases, and for different use cases, you may have different architecture that is the best fit for that specific use case. So always make your judgment, right? And be wise.
Cool. Any questions from the group? I think we have quite a lot of time to make it to have more questions as well. Okay. In the meanwhile, Igor, I have a few questions, if you don't mind. Okay. The question on the anti-pattern. So the last slide where we had a partition of based on a certain ID. So is it just for partitioning, or is it okay if we can also include the sequencing part? So a certain event, let's say an address update event. So a person updated his address, and then that comes as, let's say, update one. Then the person thought of, okay, I need to update something else. So he made an next update on the address. So that came as an update two. In the meantime, let's say there are some subscribers to this event, but at the time the subscriber is down. So the update one, if it fails, and in the same time the update two it goes, and then the race condition might happen that, let's say, update one fails but update two succeeds, but update one still remains in the queue for reprocess. So how should we handle these scenarios?
It's actually, if I understand correctly, it's the same type of use case or scenario. The only difference is that I used the time step as an example. You would have a sequence number, right?
Yeah.
So that's the difference I'm getting. Correct me if I'm wrong. So the same applies, to be honest, right? So even with the most flexible logic you can have with this staging area, right? It is complex. It is it has its disadvantages, but then you can make sure, okay, once it's in staging area, I can do different checks, right? So I have information about what has been processed. I see my master data. I know what's arriving, so I can trigger some logic, right? So obviously, from the performance perspective, it's going to take some time because you need to compare against different data sources, right? But you can do this. When you have partitioning, if you would, let's say, put a message into a dead letter channel, right? Then obviously you have really two options. You either keep processing, right, if possible, or if that would cause you an issue, you just stop processing. So it's like similar to circuit breaker, right? You have a problem down there, and you know that you can't keep accepting these messages because it would introduce more problems. You just put it on hold. You get the issue fixed. You move that message you have in that letter channel back to the main channel, right? And it has its sequence in it, right? So then you kind of restart the processing.
Okay. Yeah. So it's either the identifier that maintains the sequence in the broker, or it's the sequence number that's being dealt with when it is the subscriber system doing it. Okay. Cool. Okay, we have one question from Marius, which is, could we create a staging in MuleSoft for ordering events with normal queue, object store, or ordering data weave, or publishing to queue for queue?
You can create a staging area. You can treat it as some sort of microservice, right? So you can create a microservice for this staging area logic. Wouldn't use object store though, right? Object store is not a reliable way of managing data. So if you need really reliable way, you should go through something that is designed for that purpose. So typically it would be, I don't know, use Mongo database or, something like that rather than an object store. An object store is not meant to be, if you would feel a pain of losing data, don't use object store. Object store is for caching purposes and use cases like that, not the data storage in any way, right? So imagine I delete your staging area. Is it resilient enough for your use case? If not, then object store is not the right answer.
Right. Okay, any more
There
questions? I
is a
think we have
question
one
from
more.
Alex.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's asking for public like documentation for EDA patterns, if there is any.
I think we do have some EDA patterns from the MuleSoft Connect, which I think we can provide. Let me just search for it in the meanwhile. Any more questions, anyone? We still have some time. So we do have our blog post, which is blogs.mulesoft.com, and I could share some of the links. Alex, if that's okay with you.
So there is
So-
a, sorry, Chima, there is a question from Hassan. What pattern is
Okay.
more suitable when for consumer of an experience API needs to be notified? When consumer of experience API needs to be notified. Not sure how to understand this question, actually, I'm sorry.
Hassan, could you just provide a bit more context, please?
There is also a question from Alex again, like, are there any plans to add EDA trainings as part of MuleSoft training courses?
Good question, but I don't have an answer, unfortunately. But we can ask our training team.
Yeah. So this would be a good link for you, Alex. I'm just pasting it in the channel so everyone is aware. So this is a video from our MuleSoft Summit where we talk about event-driven microservices and async API.
There is a question for Alexander from Reza.
Okay.
How is the trade-off to build individual system process APIs links or to refactoring API in the data mesh layer?
I think we have to do both sides. As we are in the beginning and 1 year now in the field, we have to hook up everything for the system person APIs. So we are not now at the point of thinking of already refactoring it. So maybe I have a detailed answer for this in several months when we are more deep into the data mesh project.
Okay.
Yeah, I see that Hassan updated his question. So
Yeah.
Consumer needs to get notified to some state changes because response. Okay, right. So there are actually many ways how to do this. It really depends on the use case and the requirements. So the one option is a callback function, basically. So you can expose endpoint you call when some specific event happens. They can subscribe to a channel, right? So again, if there is a event emitter publishing these changes to the channel, they can subscribe to the channel. If it, for example, would be a mobile app, right? There are different infrastructure solutions, right? So there are, for example, cloud providers. They have their notification services like I believe AWS SNS. Stretching my knowledge here a bit, but you can leverage these as well, right? So if it's a notification, specific notification related requirement, then there are there are some cloud-based solutions that could be leveraged as well, right? So it really depends. There are many ways how to do this.
There is one more question from Murali Krishna.
Yeah, that would be async API. However, we need to be careful how we use this terminology now, because when we say async API spec, this would be REST API, asynchronous REST API. It wouldn't be async API in the context of building async APIs and with their specifications, etc., etc. That's different. But that's more like, again, event-oriented APIs, event-driven APIs. So yes, in this context, it would be asynchronous REST API. So potentially yes.
So I can also add a link to the evented APIs async API feature, which recently got released. So this is the release notes for that. So people can just have a look at it. It's available publicly as well. Okay, any more questions? We can take one more before we go to the next ones.
I think we have one from Murali Krishna, I guess. Either Solis or any point MQ makes some additional cost and efforts for EDA. Is that durable, or microservices approach is better for futuristic API purposes? I think you got it to you, I guess.
It's quite actually a long question. Where is it? Sorry, so I can have a look.
It's in the general chat. Yeah, it's in the general chat.
So either Solus or any point, if you make some additional costs and efforts, yes. Is that durable, or microservices approach is better for futuristic APIs? Right. So there is no simple answer. There is no silver bullet. Right? It always depends on the use case you deal with, on the requirements you have. However, my point of view, when we say futuristic in this context, to me, the future is actually event-driven. So that the industry, what I see, the industry, I think there are actually even researches for that. The industry is shifting from synchronous REST world to asynchronous API world. So when we say futuristic, then event-driven is actually what's coming. Because when you think about it, what else is in there? Artificial intelligence or machine learning, Internet of Things, right? These are now on the radar of almost every single enterprise. And to be successful with these new requirements, with these new systems, you need to go through events, event-driven architecture, asynchronous APIs.
Okay, cool. I think we had a good set of questions. So if there is any other questions, everyone, please feel free to either contact us directly as organizers, and we can provide you some answers, or you can just follow the YouTube channel and you can post your questions there as well. Or maybe in the event page, you can provide a feedback. Okay, thank you, speakers, again, Igor and Alex. It was a really nice presentation from both. I wouldn't say completely different perspective, but yeah, two different topics. Really nice topics. Okay, and just for the community, I mean, we will also plan to extend this event-driven API discussions further in some upcoming meetups where we present the API specification part using async API feature and other topics as well. Okay, which will be more in terms of showing the MuleSoft capability using async APIs and all. Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen right now. So we have just 2 or 3 more smaller things in our agenda. So just sharing for one second. So first, we would like to collect your feedback on this meetup, and we would also like to collect what, from your point of view, should be the next topics in the upcoming meetups. So if you could just log into this channel and use this joining code, and Ganesh, if you can just start sharing your screen, maybe.
I think you're sharing it right.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing, and if you could just add the joining, I'll add the joining code. If you could just share your screen in the meanwhile.
I think I have to just to refresh it, I guess. Just give me a
Of
minute.
course, sure. So you can join here, and you can use the joining code as 54180289. And Ganesh, can you bring that to the screen, please?
Yeah. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
So yes, we are people. You can just everyone in this forum can present which topic you would like to see or to be more talked about in the next upcoming meetups. Please provide your point of views so we can prepare, or we can organize with certain speakers. Or if you are interested to speak at this event on any of these topics or any other topics as well, please feel free to reach out to us. You could just have to go to the event page and click on the button called as contact your organizers, and we should get it sorted for you. Okay. So yeah, so every meetup we do all encourage speakers from the community, so please feel free to reach out to us at any point. Okay, cool. So we see people, we see basically responses for almost all of them, but mostly async API and error handling. Couple, uh,
I
just
think we
need a
can
couple of more
wait.
seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So we
you're good.
get a general view of it. So we can we'll try to organize either these topics, and will if you are interested to speak about these topics, please do let us know, and we'll try to sort that out and help you out with the presentation. Okay, could you move on to the next one, Ganesh?
Yeah.
So could you please provide a few words of how was this meetup? Did you like it? What are the things that you liked in this event? That would be really great. And then we can move on to the quiz round. So, good insights, useful, great, DA, good, more. Keep them coming, everyone. And
More
thank you so
useful.
much for this awesome feedback.
New.
That is really, really nice feedback. Informative. Yes, we do prefer online as well. Yeah, but we should also try to organize an in-person meetup just in case we want to meet face to face. I believe that's a different experience as well. Hope that soon,
Yeah.
sooner than later.
I think we can move
Okay,
on to quiz, I guess.
cool. Okay, so let's move on to the next one, which is the quiz event. So some ground rules. So please provide your full name or your proper name when you're attending this quiz event. And also please so as fast as you answer, you get more points. Okay, so try to answer as fast as you can. That would help you gain more points, and the top three winners will be awarded with a MuleSoft training or certification voucher. So we'll be providing you that trivia. And here is the code for the quiz. which is 96117226. So just give a second for everyone to join, Ganesh,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then we'll
sure.
start. And people, as you keep on joining, just click on the yes. So click on the like button so we know the number of participants there. You can find the code in the screen, or you can see it in the chat as well. 96117226. So 14, 15, 16. So Vijay says not able to provide my name. Do I have joined? I think Vijay, you might have already used Menti, so you might already have a name. So try to join again, maybe through incognito. You try to join menti.com and use the same quiz code. We'll wait till it's 25, I guess. Okay.
I
Shall we
think we
start,
can
Ganesh?
start. Yeah, we can
Yes,
start.
let's start. Okay, so all the
So,
best, everyone, and good luck.
yeah, I think we have more players now. Yeah, let me start.
Good.
Okay, let's see how many have
So,
answered correctly.
okay,
Two.
so only two. Yeah.
Okay, two. Let's see.
Um,
Let's see the
yeah.
scores.
Next.
So let's see who is on top. I think it's Hashan
Yeah.
Rasid. Yeah,
Yes.
Yuri. Yeah. Good.
fine. Then yeah, we'll move on to the next one.
Let's move on to the next one.
I
All
think
the
this is
best.
yeah.
Answering quick could earn more points.
More points. Yes.
Okay, so most of them got it right.
Yes.
Let's see who is on top again. So we have Yuri, so Ted, and Vijay. Nice.
Awesome. So
We'll
there are
move to the
still
next one.
some questions to redeem yourself. So please be ready, everyone.
Yeah, let's
So
move on to the
question
next
number
one.
3.
Yeah.
Answer first.
So you should be able to see the piece of code on the
Also
screen.
should be able to see the yeah.
Yeah, and you should be able to see the options here.
Okay, so the
3,
time is
2,
up.
1.
Yeah. Let's see how many got it right. Okay.
Okay, we have 4.
4.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see who it is.
Let's see the leaderboard. It's leading now.
I think it's changing with every question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is nice. Now
So
It's good.
we have a good set of competition. Okay, still
cool.
there is room for
So
redeeming
we
yourself.
still have two more questions. Yeah. You can answer it quick and then can get into picture.
So please see the question, which of these following is not an edge policy in the Anypoint platform?
Okay, so most of them got it right. Nice. So who's leading again? It's Yuri. Okay, let's move on the last question.
Okay, so this is the last question, everyone. Please be ready. So this will decide who are the top 3 winners. Okay, time's up.
Oh, nice. Again, the right answer.
Super.
Really
Okay.
good. So here we have Yuri, Karthik, and Pingu.
Capture. Okay, so the winners, I would first of all, congratulations, Yuri, for winning, and Karthik. Could you please drop in your email addresses?
Got you.
You can DM it to us, or you can add it in the general channels. You can either DM to me in the chat, or you can add it in the general channel. And thank you so much for this quiz, and congratulations to the winners. Okay, so we are at the end of the meetup. So we would like to take a picture of or a group picture, and then we have networking session. So we will be making everyone as a presenter. So you should be able to see the video and the mute button right now. Okay, in a bit. So please bear with us as we make you hosts, and we can go top down. So I'm going from the bottom, Ganesh.
Yeah, I'm doing it from the top.
So all you need to do is
I think Chinmay, you're muted.
I'm sorry for that. So I'm setting everyone possible as host, and people, as I keep you making as host, you should be able to see the mute and video button if you refresh your screen maybe.